I'm Shep Gordon. I'm the subject of a documentary by Mike Myer that's playing here at the Fort Worth Film Festival, and I am so happy it is. I'm getting to eat some great food and meet some old friends. It's been a great trip. The movie's called Supermensch, The Legend of Shep Gordon. I think it's my life through Mike Myers' prism. I think you know, a documentary is a filmmaker's, a filmmaker has the ownership. And this documentary happens to be about my life rather than a subject, but he still has ownership. So it's a great crossroad between what he would like for my life to be and what my life is. And I enjoyed watching it the first 10, 20 times. Now I'm getting used to it. I love telling stories. Storytelling is one of my favorite things. I think it's probably what attracted me to Alice Cooper so much, in that he was really the first musician where you would tell stories visually as well as musically. So storytelling's always been a big part of my life, and I'm really blessed to live in a wonderful place that you can always be outdoors, and I like to cook. So I do these dinner parties almost every night, and I love telling stories. And my stories come from my life, which happened to be in the 60s and 70s, which were a period that so many people are interested in. They had such a strong influence on the world culturally. So Mike would come over and I go to sleep early, and he'd always say, one more story, one more story. And for 10 or 12 years asked me if he could do a documentary and have me tell the stories. I don't think he really knew what story he wanted to tell. I think in the beginning for him it was to get almost like a museum, preserve these stories. And I really didn't see why I would want to do it except ego or what value it would have, and that's not really what's important to me. And it's also dangerous. As I know better than anyone that fame is very, very difficult to not be drawn towards. It's really worshiping false gods in a lot of ways. So I had no reason to really fight it. And then I ended up in the hospital and on a lot of medication and feeling very sorry for myself. And he called up and he said, okay, now you want to do the movie? And I think my ego probably took over every other emotion in my brain, and I wanted some self-importance for a moment and said yes, and called him up about 3 weeks later, and I said, did I say yes? Because I'm not sure. And he said, oh, we started already with 2.5 weeks at the production. I hired everyone. So then I did my job. Well, you know, he said to me when he started, and I didn't quite understand it, but I've been lucky enough to have produced and distributed a lot of movies, and I've never been arrogant enough to think that I'm making the movies. To me, it really is a director's medium. And he had never directed. And he kept talking to me about cause and effect, cause and effect. And I really didn't even know what he was talking about. And I realized what he really meant was sort of psychoanalysis, to try and find out why I do what I do, which would give him a place to go in the movie where he could tell a story, not just me telling my stories, but he could tell a story, which is what he does so magnificently. And when I watched it the first time, I was really blown away. I was a little embarrassed. There were things that were embarrassing. But I was amazed how he took my life and didn't bastardize it at all, but turned it into this beautiful story that totally different than I would have probably told it. And very humbling, you know, to see the reaction from people, because he built a sort of a superhero that has empathy because he does good stuff. And it seems to really affect people deeply. So now the reason I didn't want to do the documentary is really what seems to be driving it, a reason for it to exist, which I never could see in my own life. And he saw things I didn't see. I didn't want to do it because they didn't see any reason for it to live. To me, art needs to have some reason to live. So the only reason I could see for it to live was my ego, or maybe make some money, or maybe get famous. But I couldn't, how many people want to manage rock acts? What am I going to add to someone's life? I read a book by the Dalai Lama that adds something to someone's life. I read a book, The Jew and the Lotus, really changed my life. But to just do it because you can get a few dollars or because just didn't appeal to me. It's not what I do. And I have a real fear of fame. I feel that I've always told my movie starts off, for those who haven't seen it or don't remember, because you were as drugged out as I was when you saw the movie. I started off by saying I used to tell all my clients, if I do my job perfectly, I will probably kill you. And that's because I'll make you famous. Fame is the toxic waste of celebrity. Toxic being the really important word. But to be a celebrity, you need to speak to a large audience. The only way you get a large audience is through fame. And like everything else in life, there's good and bad attached to everything. And fame, to Mike is the one who coined it, is a toxic waste of celebrity. So for all those reasons, I didn't want to do it. But when I see now the audience and I get the Facebook messages and see that it's really, people have found stuff in my journey that's maybe going to make their journey a little happier, I'm humbled and happy and amazed. That's what I said to Mike when the film ended the first time. He said, so what do you think? You hate me, you love me? And I said, no, I want you to take me out to lunch with this guy. I love this guy. But I think, I used to try and talk to my artists to give them ways, A, to be better at their craft, and B, to deal with the fame. And one of the things that I found really worked was to think of the person that the public is adoring as a third person. Understand why they love him, understand what the qualities are that make him different than other people. And then whenever that person who you're playing has to do something, you know exactly what to do. There's nobody who knows themselves well enough to really give deep answers to questions without thinking about it. So when an Alice Cooper or a Rick James or a Raquel Welch was doing interviews, you can talk about that third person so easy. And it is you, but there's an inch of separation. If it's completely you and there's no separation, there's nobody who can answer questions without thinking about them when they're real deep questions. You have to, and it's so painful. A bad review is painful if you think it's you. If it's that person, a bad review is as good as a good review because it gives you some insight into how to maybe change a little something. And it doesn't mean it's not you. I don't mean it to sound cold and insignificant, but there's an inch of separation between you. So I look at the character, we were walking over, I was laughing because, what would Shep wear tonight? And I was at a country western store and I bought this coat. Because that's what the guy in the film probably would wear. For me, it'd be a bikini, a bathing suit and a sarong.